Welcome back, everyone. In this video, I just want to do a little brief concept of how I did project one, which is the clock in here, the Chada clock. And you don't have to do it the way I did it. This is the way I felt I was most comfortable doing it. So if you take a look, you're going to see that I have three files: a main file, a clock header file, and then the actual method file, which has all the information that we need. However, let's just take a look at main for right now. And you can see I have a special thing in here that I'm using a clock as a structure just to store the initial values of the clock and then pass that to the actual the clock class in here. So the first thing that I'm doing is getting the initial time in here. So let's go back up to what I did up top here. And I created a structure that's going to hold the hour, the minutes, and the seconds over here. And this is just a way to initialize with a default constructor of the actual structure. So if there's other ways to do the exact same thing in here. So what I did here is create it so I can get the initial time in here. So let's go back to main. So I'm declaring a clock over here. I did for demonstrating purposes in here to show the clock default constructor in here. Then I declared a time clock called the time for the actual structure itself. And I'm using the time and I'm getting the initial time. So I'll show you how I did that. I have some functions that allow you to get an integer in here, and this will require an integer to be typed in. And I have a prompt in here that says, please enter the hour, and the lowest hour is 0, and the highest hour is 24, but we really should make it 23 in here. I left this in here for demonstration purposes only. So let's go and put in the minutes and get integer. Again, for the minutes, 0 to 59. And then I have the actual definition of the function in here. So it's very simple. It doesn't do any error checking other than the range in here. So let's go back up to main again. And so I'm getting the actual initial time. So I'm going into the clock itself and I'm physically inputting the hour, the minutes, and the seconds into the clock, into the actual class. Then what I'm doing here is just constantly looping. I'm displaying the clock. Then I'm getting a selection as to what should you do, whether it to be add a minute, add an hour, exit, whatever it is in here. I have a function here that uses escape sequences that clears the screen. So I'll show you that real quick. And it's nothing more than here. And what it does is just simply uses escape codes to clear the screen in here. And we'll go back to main. And so what we're doing is we're getting a selection. Then we're doing is we're going to just keep doing it until we press in 4, which is the exit selection in here. And then assuming it's not 4, we are going to process the selection. So let's just take a quick look at process selection. So what I'm doing here is checking to see if we're doing an hour, a minute, or a second. So I'll just show you briefly increment amount. Now notice the default here, we should not get here. That is for information purposes only, just in case something goes wrong. We know we have an error sum here. So then we have, let's go to increment hour. So you can see we're just doing, now I'm using this here. So that specifies the actual object of the class in here. So we know that we're doing the member functions here and the member variables. So what I'm doing here is I'm just checking to see if it's greater than 24. Then if so, then what we're doing is we're getting the mod in here. And this is nothing more a fancy if statement to see if we are going to put in AM or PM in here. So let's look at the clock.h in here. So notice that we have private. Now this is the way I do it. I always make anything user defined with a capital C in here or with a capital letter in here. which is really Pascal case. So that's pretty much what you want to do for anything that you're user defined, so you know, again, that it's user defined. Then my way that I do things is anything that is private, I make a capital letter in here. And so this is my default constructor over here. And then this obviously is going to determine whether it's going to be AM or PM. And then you see the set hours, set minutes, set seconds, get hours, get minutes, get seconds. And then we're going to display the clock, whether it's 12 or 24. And then this is just a little function that I wrote to fill in stars so I don't have to constantly be doing for loops. So we can take a quick look at that. So you can see we're just doing a special thing in here. We're doing the text length in here, and then we're just, a few things in here. If anybody wants this code, I can let you have it here. That's no big deal. So what it'll do is it will center text around whatever that you need in here. All you have to do is pass the text that you want to center, the length that you need to center to, and then what you want to fill characters. In this particular case, we want a string in here. And then you can see we have the display clock. And these are the way I did display clock, is to make it somewhat easy to do. You can do it however way you want to do it. Let's just go and run it real quick. And notice that I have default constructor, and that was just for testing purposes only. Please enter 0. So let's just do 23. And we'll do 59. And we'll do 59. And so, again, this is my purposes in here that I wanted to see what's going on here. So we actually have 2. I never pressed 23. So I'm going to just add an hour. So that gives us 3:59:59, which is AM, and then 3:59:59 AM. So let's just keep adding hours to make sure that we roll over to PM. So now we have 11:59:59. So let's add an hour. So it should be now 12 PM, and this should just say 12. So let's just double check, make sure that's working. So that's good. That works in here. So let's continue to adding hours till we get to 23. So now we have 23:59:59. So I'm going to add a second. So the 12-hour clock should say 12:00:00 AM. The 24-hour clock should be 00:00:00. So let's see if we're feeling lucky. Let's add 1 second. And that gives us 12:00:00. And then this is all zeros over here. So if we add a minute, we have, I think I added an hour. I hit 1 instead of 2. So let's go and hit 2. We add a minute. Let's add a second. Let's add an hour. And let's add that time I did. I'm looking at the keyboard and not actually looking. So let's add a minute again. Let's add a second, an hour, a minute, and a second. And then let's just type in 5, just for the heck of it, see what happens. And it says, invalid selection, please re-enter. Let's type in 0. Invalid selection, please re-enter. And then we're going to exit with 4. So that's pretty much what I did in here. Now, I have been doing this for a long time. So I use what's called O-string stream in here that allows me to format numbers a lot easier. So all I did here was I did the stars in here. I centered the text in here. And then I did the stars in here on each side. And then you can see that I have really fairly easy. I just use the numbers in here so I can do the fix, the set width. And the reason why I did it this way is so I can print 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. So what we're doing here is we're doing a set width of 2. But if the hour only has 1 digit, we're still using a width of 2, so it'll make it 0102. Same thing with the minutes, and same thing with the seconds. And then whether AM or PM is AM or PM is going to be printed there. And then what we have to do here is clear the string again. And then we just do the spacing again. And let's go and run this one more time. And let's try our error checking, and let's put in 25. So it tells us that's an invalid number. So let's do our 23, 59, and 59. So again, I put some things in here for error checking for myself. So you can see how the clocks are side by side. You can see how the 12 o'clock is centered and the time is centered in here. Same thing with 24. That's done with the center in here. And then we have the spaces using the stars. We're to get the center text here. And we're doing a simple, here we're not actually centering it, but we're just doing 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're making your selection at the bottom. So that is it. So let's take another quick look at main. And you can see it's a very simple main. It's nothing more than here. This is for my purposes, just demonstrating purposes here and here. Then we're creating the structure of the time clock just to store the hours. And I actually spelled minutes wrong, so let me fix that. Minutes and seconds in for the initial time. And then what we're doing here is we're getting the time. Now remember, the user needs to put in the time. You don't get it from the system time, or you don't set it automatically. The user should do that. Then what I'm doing here is I'm creating the class and setting the hour, minutes, and seconds based on the initial time. So now we have that set. Then we're displaying the clock. Then we're getting the selection to see what we need to do. We're checking to see if the user pressed 4, which is the exit selection. If it's not 4, we're clearing the screen, and then we're processing the selection. So again, the process selection is a simple case statement. And we'll get to it. It's not going to it for some reason. So let's go to process selection here. And notice the process selection is nothing more than if it's 1, we're updating the 1 clock. So notice that we are passing the selection and we have a clock, and we, in order to update the clock, you have to pass it with by reference in here. Otherwise, it will just return the same in here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to increment it, the hour, the minutes, or the seconds. And again, that I have here just as testing purposes to make sure we should never get there. You'll see a lot of my code always has something like, oops, we have a problem. Most of the time I put we should never get here. And that way I know if we ever did get here, then we have an issue and you can fix it. So again, I'm setting the hour, the minutes, and the seconds, and returning the entire structure. You do not have to do it this way. This is just the way that I did it. And then I have my get integer functions in here. And so this is a way to determine that if you have an actual something that is supposed to be an integer, but it's not, by using regular expressions in here. And this is what it looks like. Again, you don't have to worry about any of those items here. Here is our clock header. So you can see all the functions that I have: set hours, set minutes, set seconds, get hours, get minutes, and get seconds, and increment hours, and display the clock. And then I have the center text. And here is the actual methods themselves that you're going to do. Again, I use this just as a matter of preference. It's not required. But in this particular case, I just feel more comfortable when I'm working with classes to use this. So I know that we always mean the member variable minutes in here of the actual clock itself. That's useful if you're passing something that has the same name. What I normally do would be passing something with a lowercase m. But again, everybody has their own style. Preferences, the only thing that I ask is to make sure that you're using camel case in everything that you do. So that is it. I'm hoping that this video helps you. Please leave comments. Please leave feedback. Please like it if you like it. And if there's any questions that you have, please let me know. I'm just an email away. So have a wonderful day. I'm looking forward to seeing your submissions.